Bonjour, this is Piper Blush. Bonjour, this is Piper Blush. And I have something great for you. This is an experience you really want to be here for. Don't worry, it's not going to take that long. So what happened is, I have one video. It's a video of me on Reunion Island. Yeah, I know, if you don't know where that's at, it's completely normal. But you will after this video. I've taken this video and I've just extrapolated, bam, the transcript of my voice. So everything I say in this video, I took it, it's just like a text PDF. Nothing crazy. And then I gave that to Google Notebook. Now Google Notebook took that and bam, it created a whole conversation. Now, that's not where it's crazy. You're like, Piper, just put some text and then create a conversation. It's an AI conversation. So it took the text I gave it and then it actually divided it between two people, one female, one male. And then they talked to each other, much like if you were listening to a podcast or a radio show, if those of you who are still there who listen to the radio, I mean, it's the same thing. And you comprehend the whole entire video in the same way as if you would have watched it, but instead you're assisting or hearing a whole podcast/radio show with these two hosts that are saying every really important things that I said in my video. Okay, we're gonna listen to this together because it's really, really interesting. And keep in mind, this was done in like less than 5 minutes. Took the video, took the text from the video, put it in Google Notebook, and then bam. Doing this actual like green screen, that took a lot longer than the rest of this. So let's see right here.
Okay, so are you ready to explore Reunion Island?
This place, it really is something else. A hidden gem, for sure.
Yeah.
Lots of surprises.
You ever just, come across a place you barely even knew existed and you're just blown away?
Yeah.
That's Reunion Island.
It's tucked away in the Indian Ocean, right? Like neighbors with Madagascar, Mauritius. But don't let that fool you.
Exactly. It's got its own whole thing going on.
Right, right. Just because they're near each other doesn't mean they're the same, you know? Reunion Island is like a blend. It's got its own history and its own look.
And speaking of its look, let's talk about getting around, because our source was very clear about this. Rent a small car.
Makes total sense when you really picture it. Like, those streets, they've got that European vibe, narrow and charming. Not made for a big SUV.
No, not at all. Small car it is.
Oh.
Now, on to something I always get excited about: food. And let me tell you, Reunion Island, they bring it.
It's like a foodie's dream come true. What gets me is how they mix the flavors, you know? You've got French, Indian, Chinese, African, all these influences.
Our source could not stop talking about the smoked meats. Oh, and the seafood. And those big pots cooking over open fires. Come on.
It's an experience. Every single bite, every dish is telling you a story about the people and the history.
I know, I'm starving just thinking about it. Okay, so picture this. You've had way too much delicious food, right? Time for a walk along the beach. Our source actually walked 9 kilometers along the coast. 9.
Wow, that's commitment. But it tells you something about the island. It's not just beaches, right? You've got volcanoes and forests, waterfalls.
A nature lover's paradise, no question.
Huh.
Word to the wise, though, our source, well, they learned the hard way about that Reunion Island sun.
It's so easy to get caught up in the moment, you know? You're exploring, you're excited, and bam, sunburn.
Right. They actually said the UV index was like something at a NASCAR. Intense. They ended up with quite the tan and a souvenir t-shirt reminding them to pack sunscreen next time.
A hard-earned lesson, right. A little crispy, but a lesson learned. Speaking of adventure, we've got to talk about sharks. Reunion Island's known for them, and they do things a little differently to keep everyone safe, both people and sharks.
Shark policeman, can you believe it?
I know. Sounds crazy, but it just shows you how important it is to get that balance right. You've got to protect people who are in the water.
But then you can't forget about the ecosystem either.
Exactly. And it sounds like these patrols, they're actually helping to figure out how to do both.
And for those who aren't fans of swimming with sharks, there's always the lagoon.
Ah, the lagoon. It's naturally protected, like a haven. No sharks allowed.
Which reminds me of this hilarious thing our source mentioned. Picture this, right? You're on the beach, soaking it all in, and you see it. The internet cable.
Wait, like the actual cable?
The one and only. Apparently just runs along the ocean floor and then pops up right there on the beach.
Yeah.
And get this.
What is it?
Sharks. They mistake it for food sometimes.
Hold on. A shark ate the internet.
You heard right. And they can cause outages on the island.
No way. That's both hilarious and also a good reminder. We forget sometimes how connected to nature technology really is, especially in a place like Reunion Island.
It's crazy, right? You'd never think a shark could take down the internet. I don't know. It just kind of puts things in perspective, you know?
Totally. We take so much for granted. Maybe a little digital detox is what we all need.
Speaking of embracing the simpler life, our source mentioned this phrase. They said it really sums up the Reunion Island vibe. Allah.
Allah. Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that mean?
So it means let's go, but not in a rush, gotta hurry kind of way. More like let's take a walk or let's just enjoy the moment.
I love that. I could use a bit of that Allah attitude in my life.
Me too. And it's everywhere on the island, right? From that relaxed, alone feeling to the food.
Oh, yeah, the food. Taking their time, letting those flavors blend together.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, that curry our source talked about, it sounded amazing. And maybe think about something you mentioned earlier about Reunion Island being this mix of different cultures.
It is, isn't it? And the food is the perfect example. Everything just comes together.
Right. Imagine like a classic French curry, but then they add these incredible Indian spices, maybe some fish they caught that day, or even zebu, which is a type of cattle they have on the island.
A true melting pot, just like the island itself.
You can really taste the history. And speaking of history, you know what I find so interesting about Reunion Island?
What's that?
It's still kind of under the radar, you know, compared to those super touristy places.
Yeah, it's true. That's part of what makes it so special. But it also makes you wonder, right? About the effects of tourism. As more people discover it, what happens?
That's a really good point. Yeah, exactly. I mean, on the one hand, you've got this potential for growth for the economy, for the people who live there.
But on the other hand, you've got to think about the resources, right? The environment, even the culture. How do you keep it from getting lost in the shuffle?
That's a tough one. Like, how do you find that balance where people can experience something new and amazing, but without, you know, loving it to death?
Right. It's about being aware, I think, being respectful, and realizing that we're just visitors.
Because sometimes those places that are off the beaten path, those hidden gems, they're also the most delicate.
Well said. And I think that's a really important point to end on. When we explore, when we travel, when we share these stories, it's got to be about more than just ticking places off a list. It's about understanding, appreciating.
It's about diving deep, you know, not just into a new place, but into what it means to be a responsible traveler, a thoughtful explorer.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep those deep dives going, keep learning, keep exploring.
Did you hear all of this? Now, I didn't hire anybody from Fiverr. No, that's not how it happened. I actually just, like I said, put the text in Google Notebook and then, poof, it gave me this. These two people that made a whole entire conversation on the text that I've given them. Now this is amazing because you get to hear your video, like your actual video, or any type of piece of information in a whole different way. It can serve for education if you're trying to learn something crazy, like, oh, what is Reunion Island like, or where it's at? Well, then you just prompt it that way, and it's gonna give you a sort of podcast to listen to, so you can get educated. But it also brings another idea, because it's called brainstorming, which I find it weird because I feel like it's not really brainstorming, is really more like a podcast / radio show, but you can also use it to kind of get a different opinion or a different outlook on, well, the subject at hand. And that is really helpful if ever you're looking for like some type of guidance and you don't really know. Well, just to put it in there and to listen back to it, it's gonna like bring you already 2 new people. Not just one like ChatGPT or things like that, but 2. Plus, it's audio. You listen to them. And the fact that they're exchanging makes you like not lose focus as often as you would when only one person is listening. Just like me right now. Focus. So, that is everything I have to say about this. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you learned in this video about Reunion Island. Yes, even though it was more like podcast / video. And then, well, I want to know your thoughts on AIs and where it's going. I'm Piper Blush, and I'm everywhere. You don't believe me? Just Google me.